Carenza didn't know the king had dreamed of her face every night for 7 years. She didn't know he'd sent trackers across 3 kingdoms searching for a woman he'd never met, armed with nothing but the shape of her eyes and the desperate certainty that she existed. And she definitely didn't know that crashing his wedding would unravel the curse slowly killing him from the inside out. All she knew was that something was terribly wrong. The Cathedral of Valdres was the most beautiful building Carenza had ever seen. Soaring stone arches reached toward a ceiling painted with stars and moons, and light poured through stained glass windows in rivers of gold and crimson. Hundreds of nobles packed the pews, dressed in silks and velvets that cost more than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes. The air smelled of incense and roses and the sharp, expensive perfume of people who'd never worked a day in their lives. Carenza had slipped in through a servant's entrance, bribing a kitchen boy with the last of her copper coins. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was a healer from Thornwick, a village so small it didn't appear on most maps. She delivered babies and set broken bones and mixed poultices for coughs that wouldn't quit. She had no business in the capital, no business in this cathedral, and certainly no business anywhere near the Alpha King's wedding. But the dreams had driven her here. For 3 weeks, she'd seen the same vision every time she closed her eyes. A crown of iron and thorns, a man choking on shadows, and blood, so much blood, spreading across white marble floors. She'd tried to ignore it, tried to convince herself it was nothing. But the dreams grew stronger, more urgent, until she couldn't eat or sleep without seeing that nameless king dying in the dark. So she'd walked for 6 days to reach the capital. And now she stood in the back of the cathedral, hidden behind a pillar, watching the most powerful man in the realm take a bride. Alpha King Soren stood at the altar, tall and impossibly still. Dark hair swept back from a face that looked carved from stone. Handsome in a severe way, all sharp cheekbones and a jaw that could cut glass. He wore ceremonial black and silver, and even from this distance, Carenza could see the rigid set of his shoulders, the way his hands were clasped behind his back, fingers tight. He looked like a man walking to his execution. Beside him stood his bride. Lady Vespera was everything Carenza was not. Willowy and pale, with hair like spun moonlight and a gown that probably cost more than Carenza's entire village. She smiled serenely, her hand resting on Soren's arm like she owned him. Carenza's stomach turned. And then she made the mistake of truly looking. Her gift had been with her since childhood, an ability she'd hidden from everyone except her late grandmother, who'd shared the same curse. Carenza could see bonds, the invisible threads that connected souls to one another. Friendship appeared as soft blue. Family glowed gentle amber, and true mates, the rarest bond of all, burned like spun gold. She looked at the king and his bride, expecting to see something, anything. Even arranged marriages usually showed threads of duty or resignation. There was nothing. No thread connected Soren to Vespera, not a single strand. The space between them was cold and empty and wrong, but that wasn't what made Carenza's blood freeze. Around the king's chest, wrapped tight as a serpent, was something dark. A thread that wasn't a thread. It pulsed with sickly green light, coiling around his heart, squeezing with each breath he took. A curse. Someone had bound a curse directly to his soul. And beneath the curse, something else. A thread of pure gold stretching from his heart toward hers. She forced herself to look away before she could follow it. The curse was killing him. That was what mattered now. Carenza gripped the pillar to keep from swaying. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she traced the dark thread with her eyes, following it from the king's chest outward, searching for its source. It led directly to Lady Vespera. The priest's voice rang through the cathedral. If any here know of a reason these two should not be joined, speak now or forever hold your peace. Carenza's throat closed. She couldn't do this. She was no one. A healer from nowhere. If she spoke, they'd arrest her. Execute her. Throw her body in a ditch and forget she ever existed. The priest opened his mouth to continue. The curse pulsed. The king's face went pale just for a moment. A flicker of pain he quickly smothered. He was dying. Right there at the altar, he was dying, and no one could see it but her. Carenza moved before she could stop herself. "Stop!" Her voice echoed off the stone walls, sharp and desperate. "Stop the wedding!" Every head in the cathedral turned. Hundreds of eyes found her, wide with shock, narrowing with outrage. Guards reached for their swords. Lady Vespera's serene expression cracked, fury flashing beneath the mask. Carenza's legs trembled, but she held her ground. And then the king looked at her. Storm-gray eyes met hers across the crowded cathedral, and everything else fell away. The gasping nobles, the advancing guards, the priest's sputtering protests. All of it faded to silence. Something shifted in Soren's expression. The cold mask cracked, and beneath it, Carenza saw something that stole her breath. Recognition. He raised one hand, and the guards froze mid-step. Everyone out!" His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute command. "Now!" "Your Majesty," Vespera started, her tone sharp with barely concealed rage. "This peasant has no right to—" "I said everyone." The cathedral emptied in minutes. Nobles fled like startled birds, casting scandalized glances over their shoulders. Guards filed out with military precision. Vespera was escorted away by her father, Lord Varenne, whose cold eyes lingered on Carenza with undisguised hatred. And then, they were alone. The king descended from the altar, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. He moved with a wolf's lethal grace despite the curse slowly strangling his heart. Closer. Closer, until he stood before her, so near she could see the silver flecks in his gray eyes. "You came," he said softly, and his voice broke on the words. Carenza's mind spun. "I don't understand. I've been waiting." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek with startling gentleness. "I've been waiting for you." A cold feeling settled in her gut. Up close, the curse looked even worse, pulsing and writhing around his chest like a living thing. How was he still standing? How was he still breathing? "You know me?" she whispered. "I've dreamed of you." Soren's hand dropped from her face, but his eyes never left hers. "Every night for 7 years. Your face. Your voice. I've sent men across the continent searching for a woman I'd never met, praying I wasn't losing my mind. 7 years. Carenza's heart stuttered. That was when her grandmother had died. When her gift had fully awakened. When the dreams of the dying king had first begun. "That's not possible," she breathed, "and yet here you stand." The corner of his mouth lifted, but it wasn't quite a smile, more like a man seeing water after wandering a desert. "Crashing my wedding, telling me to stop. Because you're dying." The words hung between them. Something flickered in Soren's expression. Surprise, then something careful and controlled sliding into place. "What makes you say that?" "I can see it." Carenza's voice trembled, but she forced herself to continue. She'd come too far to stop now. "The curse wrapped around your heart. Green and black, pulsing like a sickness. It's killing you slowly. And it's connected to her. To Lady Vespera." Silence stretched between them. Carenza braced for denial, for laughter, for him to call the guards and have her dragged away as a madwoman. Instead, Soren exhaled slowly. "You're a seer, a bond reader." Her stomach dropped. "How do you know that term?" "My grandmother was one." He turned, pacing toward the altar with his hands clasped behind his back. She could see the threads connecting people. Mates, enemies, allies. She used to tell me about the colors. Blue for friendship, amber for family. He paused. Gold for true mates. Carenza's throat tightened. She didn't dare look at the thread she'd been trying to ignore since she first laid eyes on him. The golden thread that stretched from his heart directly to hers. "They're rare," Soren continued. "Bond readers. My grandmother searched for another her entire life, hoping to train a successor. She never found one. He turned back to face her. And now you appear, just when I've begun to suspect that my bride is not what she seems, that this marriage is not the political alliance I was promised, but a trap. You knew, Carenza said slowly. You suspected the curse. I've felt wrong for months. Weaker. My wolf harder to reach. His jaw tightened. But I couldn't prove anything. Lord Varen controls half the council. His daughter was presented as a peace offering after years of border disputes. Refusing the match would have meant war. So you were just going to marry her? Let the curse kill you? I was running out of options. His eyes found hers again, and the honesty in them hit her like a blow. Until you. The weight of his gaze was too much. Carenza looked away, her heart racing. What do you see between me and Vespera? He asked quietly. Nothing. She forced the word out. No threat at all. Not even obligation or politics. Just empty space. And Lord Varen? Carenza closed her eyes, reaching for her gift. The cathedral's residual energy made it easier. She could still feel the echoes of everyone who'd been here. Dark red threads to his daughter. Control, possession, ambition, and something black extending outward. A web. He's connected to others. Conspirators. How many? I can't tell from here. I'd need to be closer. See them in person. Soren nodded slowly. And the curse. Can you see where it originates? How to break it? Carenza opened her eyes. It's anchored to Vespera somehow. If she dies, it might die with her. But I can't be certain. I've never seen magic like this. I won't kill her without proof of conspiracy, even if she's trying to kill me. Soren's voice was hard. I'm not my father. I don't execute people on suspicion. Then let me help you find proof. The words tumbled out before Carenza could stop them. I can see the threads. I can identify the conspirators. I can find the source of the curse. Soren studied her for a long moment. You understand what you're offering? Lord Varen is powerful, ruthless. If he discovers what you can do, he'll have you killed. I know. Then why offer? Carenza hesitated. Because I've dreamed of you too. Because there's a golden thread between us that I don't understand. Because I've spent my whole life hiding, and for the first time, my gift could actually save someone. Because you're dying, she said instead. And I can't walk away knowing I could have helped. Something broke open in Soren's expression. That controlled mask cracking again, letting through something vulnerable and fierce. What's your name? He asked softly. Carenza. From Thornwick. Carenza. He said it like he was tasting something precious. I'll need you to stay here, at the castle. Close enough to see the threads of everyone in my court. Her pulse quickened. For how long? However long it takes to uncover the conspiracy and break the curse. Weeks. Maybe longer. And what do I tell people? A healer from nowhere suddenly living in the castle? You'll be my personal physician. The corner of his mouth lifted. I'll say I've taken ill and require specialized care. It's not even a lie. Carenza's mind raced through the implications. Living in the castle. Surrounded by enemies. One mistake away from discovery. But the alternative was walking away. Letting the curse finish its work. Watching, from whatever distance, as another king died in her dreams. I have conditions, she said. Soren's eyebrow rose. Name them. First, Carenza said, her voice steadier than she felt. I need protection. Real protection. If Varen discovers what I am, I'm dead before sunrise. Done. You'll have guards, my most trusted men. Second, I need access. To the court, to the council meetings, anywhere the conspirators might gather. I can't see threads through walls. Soren nodded. You'll attend as my physician. No one will question your presence at my side. Third. She hesitated. This was the hard one. When this is over, If we succeed, I want gold. Enough to disappear. To start over somewhere, no one knows what I can do. Something flickered across his face. Disappointment, maybe. But he buried it quickly. How much? Enough to buy land, build a home, live without fear for the rest of my life. Done. His voice was flat now, businesslike. Anything else? Carenza took a deep breath. A blood oath. Soren went very still. I know what I'm risking, she continued. My life, my secret, everything. I need to know you won't betray me. Won't hand me over to Varen when this is done. Won't decide I'm too dangerous to let live. You think I would do that? I think you're a king. And kings do what's necessary. The silence stretched between them, heavy and charged. Carenza's heart pounded so loud she was certain he could hear it. Then Soren pulled a knife from his belt. The blade was beautiful. Dark steel etched with symbols that seemed to shift in the candlelight. Old magic, Carenza realized. Binding magic. I've never broken a blood oath in my life, Soren said quietly. And I never will. I swear on my blood that I will protect you, that I will pay you what you're owed. That when this is over, you will be free to leave, with gold in your pocket and no enemies at your heels. He drew the blade across his palm without flinching. Blood welled up, dark and gleaming. Carenza took the knife with trembling fingers. The handle was warm from his grip. She pressed the edge to her own palm and cut quickly, gasping at the sting. Soren extended his bleeding hand. She took it. The moment their blood touched, the world shifted. Magic flared between them, hot and golden, sealing the oath with ancient power. But beneath it, wrapped around it, Carenza felt something else. Something that had nothing to do with the binding words they'd spoken. The golden thread between them blazed to life. She'd been trying to ignore it since she first saw him at the altar. Trying to pretend it was a trick of the light, a mistake, anything but what she knew it to be. But now, with her blood mingling with his, there was no denying it. The thread was real, solid, unbreakable. They were mates. Soren's hand tightened on hers. His eyes widened, something unguarded and wondering breaking through his careful control. You feel that? He breathed. It wasn't a question. Carenza couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but stare at their joined hands while magic and destiny and something terrifyingly like fate wound around them both. I feel it, she finally managed. The bond. Yes. Don't. The word came out sharper than she intended. Don't say it, please. Soren released her hand slowly, and the loss of contact felt like stepping out of sunlight into shadow. He tore a strip of fabric from his shirt, offering half to her before wrapping his own palm. We don't have to talk about it, he said quietly. Not now. Not until you're ready. Thank you. But Carenza. He waited until she met his eyes. It doesn't change anything about our arrangement. You're still free to leave when this is over. The bond doesn't trap you. I won't let it. She wanted to believe him. Wanted it more than she'd ever wanted anything. But the golden thread was still there, humming between them, patient and absolute. Tomorrow, Soren said, his voice rough. We start tomorrow. I'll have rooms prepared for you tonight. Rest. Eat. You'll need your strength. He turned and walked toward a side door, his shoulders rigid with tension. Soren? She called. He stopped but didn't turn. The curse. How long do you have? A pause. My grandmother lasted 2 years from the first symptoms. I've had mine for 8 months. Carenza's chest constricted. Then we don't have much time. No. He glanced back, and the weight of everything unsaid hung between them. We don't. Then he was gone, disappearing into the shadows of the cathedral, leaving Carenza alone with the blood drying on her palm and a bond she didn't know how to accept. She looked down at the golden thread still connecting her heart to his, stretching through walls and stone and all the distance he'd put between them. What have I done? She thought. But deep in her chest, beneath the fear and the uncertainty, something else stirred. Something that felt dangerously like hope. A woman named Marin showed Carenza to her chambers. She was silver-haired with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner that reminded Carenza of her grandmother. "His Majesty said you're to have everything you need," Marin said, pushing open heavy oak doors. "Food, clothing, books. Just ring and someone will come." Carenza stepped inside and forgot how to breathe. The room was larger than her entire cottage in Thornwick. A bed piled with furs dominated one wall, facing windows that overlooked snow-capped mountains. A fireplace crackled with warmth, and copper tubs steamed in an adjoining bathing chamber. Everything smelled of cedar and lavender. "This is too much," Carenza whispered. "It's the physician's quarters." Marin's tone was matter-of-fact. "Connected to His Majesty's chambers by the inner corridor. For emergencies." Connected to his chambers. Carenza's stomach flipped. After Marin left, Carenza sank onto the bed, overwhelmed. 12 hours ago, she'd been sleeping in a barn outside the city walls, rationing stale bread. Now she was surrounded by luxury she couldn't have imagined. She bathed quickly, scrubbing away 6 days of road dust. Clean clothes had been laid out, simple but well-made. A healer's dress in deep green with practical sleeves. Someone had thought carefully about what she'd need. That night, she ate alone. Roasted pheasant, honey-glazed vegetables, bread still warm from the ovens, wine that tasted like summer berries. She forced herself to eat slowly, knowing her shrunken stomach couldn't handle too much too fast. Sleep came in fits and starts. Every creak made her jolt awake. Certain Varen's men had come. But by dawn, she was still alive, still free, still bound by blood and gold to a king she barely knew. The next morning, Riven came for her. He was Soren's captain of the guard. Tall, scarred, with close-cropped dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. The thread connecting him to Soren glowed deep amber. Family, Carenza realized, not by blood, but by choice. "His Majesty requests your presence," Riven said. His tone was neutral, but she caught the flicker of curiosity in his gaze. "Council meets in an hour. You'll attend." "Does the council know why I'm here?" "They know you're the king's physician. Nothing more." Riven studied her. "Keep it that way." Carenza followed him through corridors that twisted like a maze. Servants moved with purpose, nodding respectfully as they passed. Guards stood at every junction, hands on sword hilts. The castle felt alive, humming with activity and barely contained tension. "The king trusts you," Riven said suddenly. Carenza stumbled slightly. "He barely knows me." "Soren doesn't trust easily. Not since his parents died." Riven's jaw tightened. "If you betray that trust, I'll kill you myself." Slowly. The threat hung in the air, cold and absolute. "I won't betray him," Carenza said quietly. Riven studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded once, something in his expression softening fractionally. "Good. Then we won't have a problem." They reached a set of massive doors carved with wolves and moons. Beyond them, Carenza could hear voices. Many voices. The entire council, gathered to discuss a wedding that hadn't happened. Riven pushed open the doors, and Carenza stepped into the den of wolves. The council chamber was chaos wrapped in silk. Nearly a dozen lords and ladies sat around a crescent-shaped table, their voices overlapping in heated debate. At the head, Soren presided in cold silence. Vespera sat 3 chairs to his left, pale and composed. Lord Varen loomed beside her, his silver hair swept back from a face that reminded Carenza of a hawk. Sharp, predatory, patient. Every eye turned when she entered. "My physician," Soren said calmly. "She'll be attending all council sessions going forward, for my health." Murmurs rippled through the room. Varen's gaze found Carenza, and she felt the weight of it like a blade pressed to her throat. "Is your Majesty unwell?" Varen's voice was smooth as poisoned honey. "A minor ailment. Nothing that should concern the council." Soren gestured to a chair near his right hand. "Sit, Carenza." She sat, acutely aware of every stare. Her gift pulsed, threads springing to life across her vision. The council was a tapestry of loyalty and lies. 3 lords burned with amber threads connecting them to Sorin, genuine loyalty, forged through years of service, but 5 others showed something darker. Crimson threads linking them to Varin. Obligation, fear, secrets shared. And Vespera. Carenza forced herself to look at the would-be queen. The curse was still there, coiled around Sorin's heart, but now she could see it more clearly. It flowed from Vespera like smoke, feeding on proximity, growing stronger every moment they were in the same room. But Vespera wasn't the source. She was a conduit. The true origin lay somewhere else. Something anchoring the curse, fueling it. Carenza traced the dark thread with her eyes, following it past Vespera, past the walls, out toward... "Don't you agree, healer?" Carenza blinked. Lord Varan was watching her with a thin smile. "Forgive me, my lord. I was assessing His Majesty's condition." "What was the question?" "I asked whether you believe the king is fit to rule, given his sudden illness." Varen's tone dripped false concern. "Perhaps a regent should be appointed until he recovers." The room went silent. Carenza felt Sorin tense beside her, though his expression remained unchanged. This was the play. Varin wanted to sideline him, take control while the curse weakened him further. "His Majesty's condition is temporary," Carenza said, keeping her voice steady. "With proper care, he'll make a full recovery. A regent would be premature and, frankly, insulting to a king who's ruled successfully for 11 years. Varen's smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened. Bold words from a village healer? Truth often sounds bold to those unaccustomed to hearing it. Someone at the table coughed to cover a laugh. Sorin's hand twitched on the armrest, the barest hint of amusement. Varin inclined his head, conceding the round. "We shall see." The council continued for another 2 hours. Carenza watched, catalogued, memorized. By the time Sorin dismissed them, she had a map of the conspiracy forming in her mind. 5 lords connected to Varennes. Vespera as the curse's conduit. And something else. Something hidden, anchoring the magic. She waited until the chamber emptied before speaking. "The curse isn't just from Vespera. There's an anchor somewhere. Something physical. A talisman, or a binding object." Sorin's knuckles whitened on the table's edge. "Where?" "I couldn't trace it fully. Somewhere east? Maybe Varen's estate?" "That's 3 days' ride." "Then we need another approach." Carenza hesitated. "I could try to read Vespera directly. If I touch her, I might see more." "Too dangerous. She'd feel you probing." "Not if I'm careful." Sorin turned to face her fully. In the afternoon light, he looked exhausted. The curse was draining him faster than she'd realized. "I won't risk you," he said quietly. "It's my risk to take." "No." His voice hardened. "We find another way." Carenza opened her mouth to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. It wasn't just royal command, it was fear. Naked, undisguised fear of losing her. The golden thread between them pulsed warmly. "Fine," she conceded. "Another way." "But Sorin, we're running out of time. I could see the curse feeding on you during the council. Every hour you spend near her, it grows stronger." "I know." He ran a hand through his hair, a surprisingly human gesture. "I've felt it, like something eating me from the inside." "Then stay away from her. Make excuses. Anything. If I avoid her too obviously, Varin will know something's wrong. He'll accelerate his plans." Carenza's frustration surged. "So you'll just let the curse kill you while we search for answers?" "I'll let it weaken me enough to seem vulnerable." Sorin's eyes found hers. "While you find the anchor and destroy it." "That's a terrible plan." "It's the only plan we have." He stepped closer and she caught his scent. Pine and smoke and something wild beneath. "Do you trust me, Carenza?" She should say no. Every instinct for self-preservation demanded it. But the golden thread hummed between them, and her heart answered before her mind could intervene. Yes, she breathed. I trust you. Something broke open in his expression. Relief. Wonder. And beneath it all, a desperate hope that made her throat tighten. 3 days passed in a blur of council meetings and careful observation. Carenza mapped the conspiracy thread by thread. 5 lords bound to Varin through blackmail, debt, or shared ambition. 12 servants in the castle who reported directly to Vespera. And something else she couldn't quite name. A shadow at the edges of her vision, watching. The curse continued to feed. Soren grew paler, his movements slower, though he hid it well from everyone except her. At night, she mixed remedies that slowed the progression. Herbs for strength, tinctures for clarity. Small kindnesses that couldn't cure, but might buy time. On the 3rd evening, she found him on the battlements. The sun was setting, painting the mountains in shades of gold and crimson. Wind whipped through her hair as she climbed the narrow stairs. Soren stood at the edge, silhouetted against the dying light, looking out at a kingdom he might not live to see again. You shouldn't be up here, she said softly. The cold weakens you. The cold is the only thing that clears my head anymore. He didn't turn. Everything else is fog. The curse, eating through my thoughts. Carenza moved to stand beside him. I'm close to something. The anchor. I think it's a blood object. Something personal. Hair, maybe. Or bone. My grandmother's ring. She froze. What? When my grandmother died, I gave her ring to my mother. When my mother died, it was given to Vespera as part of the betrothal gifts. Soren's voice was hollow. I thought I was honoring my family. Instead, I handed them the weapon to kill me. Can we get it back? Vespera wears it constantly, never takes it off. Carenza's mind raced. Then we need to force her hand. Make her remove it somehow. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. She turned to face him. I won't let you die, Soren. He finally looked at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made her forget how to breathe. Why does it matter so much to you? You know why. The golden thread blazed between them, impossible to ignore. Soren reached out, slow and deliberate, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her jaw, tilting her face up. I've been trying not to feel this, he said roughly. Trying to keep my distance. Give you space to decide. But every time you walk into a room, every time you challenge me or smile or just exist, His voice cracked. I don't know how to pretend anymore. Then don't. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Soren went still. Carenza? I know it's complicated. I know we barely know each other. I know there's a curse and a conspiracy and 100 reasons why this is insane. She met his eyes. But I've never felt anything like this. And I'm tired of being afraid of it. She rose on her toes and kissed him. For a heartbeat, he didn't move. Then his arms came around her, pulling her close, and he kissed her back with a desperation that shattered her defenses. It wasn't gentle. It was fire and hunger and 7 years of longing finally breaking free. His hands fisted in her hair, her fingers gripped his shirt. The golden thread between them sang, bright and wild and absolute. When they finally broke apart, both gasping for air, Soren pressed his forehead to hers. I don't want to let you go, he breathed. Then don't. But the curse. If I die, you won't. Carenza gripped his face between her palms. Look at me. You will not die. We're going to find that ring. We're going to destroy it. And then, we're going to figure out what this bond means together. You make it sound simple. It is simple. The hard part is believing it. Soren laughed, soft and broken. You're terrifying, you know that? Good. Someone needs to terrify you into staying alive. He kissed her again, softer this time, tender, like she was something precious he was afraid to lose. Stay with me tonight, he murmured against her lips. Not like that. Just stay. I can't sleep anymore. The curse gives me nightmares. But when you're near, they quiet. Carence's heart clenched. Okay, I'll stay. They walked back through the darkened corridors together, hands intertwined. Outside her chambers, Soren hesitated. We're being watched, he said quietly. Varen's spies are everywhere. I know. If they see us, then let them see. Carence squeezed his hand. Let them see the king's physician checking on her patient. Nothing more. His smile was tired but real. When did you become so brave? Around the same time I crashed your wedding and changed my entire life. She opened the door. Come on. You need rest. That night they lay in her bed, fully clothed, his arms wrapped around her from behind. The curse pulsed weakly, but it seemed dimmer somehow. Quieter. This helps, Soren murmured, his breath warm against her hair. The bond. It fights the curse. Then I'll stay as long as you need. Careful. His voice was heavy with approaching sleep. I might hold you to that. Carenza smiled into the darkness. I'm counting on it. She listened as his breathing slowed, felt the tension drain from his body. Even in sleep, his arm tightened around her like he was afraid she'd disappear. She wouldn't. Not now. Maybe not ever. That thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. Carenza woke to screaming, not her own. Someone in the corridor, high and terrified, cut short by a wet gurgle that made her blood freeze. Soren was already moving, throwing off the furs, a knife appearing in his hand from somewhere she hadn't seen. Stay here, he ordered. Like hell. She grabbed her own blade, the small one Riven had given her after the second council meeting, and followed Soren into the corridor. Chaos greeted them. 2 guards lay dead outside her door. Their throats were opened, blood pooling black in the torchlight. A third guard, one of Soren's trusted men, was fighting desperately against 3 attackers in dark leather. Soren moved like lightning. Even weakened by the curse, he was devastating. His blade opened one attacker's chest before the man could turn. The second fell with steel through his eye. The third tried to run and made it exactly 4 steps before Soren's thrown knife buried itself between his shoulder blades. Silence. The surviving guard, Tavish, slumped against the wall, clutching a wound in his side. Report, Soren barked. Assassins, Your Majesty. At least a dozen. They came through the servants' passages. Tavish coughed blood. They were heading for your chambers, and hers. Carence's stomach dropped. They know. Varen. Soren's voice was ice. He's making his move. More sounds echoed from deeper in the castle. Steel on steel, shouting. The distant crash of something heavy falling. We need to find Riven, Carenza said. Riven can handle himself. Soren gripped her arm. We need to find the ring, tonight, now, while everything's in chaos. Vespera will be guarded. Not if she thinks she's winning. His eyes were wild, fevered. The curse was flaring, feeding on his adrenaline. She'll want to watch. She'll be somewhere she can see me fall. Carenza's gift pulsed, threads flickering at the edges of her vision. She reached for them, searching, tracing the dark curse back toward its anchor. The throne room, she breathed. She's in the throne room, with Varen. They ran. The castle was a battlefield. Loyal guards fought Varen's men in corridors slick with blood. Servants cowered in doorways. Somewhere, a fire had started, smoke beginning to curl through the air. Twice, assassins found them. Twice, Soren cut them down with brutal efficiency. But each fight cost him. Carenza could see the curse tightening, feeding on his exertion, draining him faster. You can't keep this up, she gasped as they paused in an alcove. I don't have to. He was breathing hard, sweat beading his brow. Just long enough to reach her. And then what? You can barely stand. Then you'll have to be my strength. He met her eyes, and beneath the exhaustion, she saw absolute faith. I trust you, Carenza. Whatever happens in that room, I trust you. Her chest constricted. "Don't you dare die on me?" "Wouldn't dream of it." They reached the throne room doors. Massive oak, carved with wolves, usually guarded by a dozen men. Tonight they stood open, torchlight flickering from within. Soren took her hand, squeezed once. Then they walked into the serpent's den. Varen stood before the throne like he already owned it. His silver hair was immaculate, his robes unwrinkled despite the chaos consuming the castle. Vespera sat in the throne itself, the ring gleaming on her finger, a smile playing at her lips. A dozen armed men flanked them, but it was the 5 lords standing behind Varen that made Kerensa's heart sink. The conspirators, all present, all watching. "Soren." Varen's voice dripped with false sympathy. "You look unwell. Perhaps you should sit down." "Oh, wait. My daughter seems to have taken your seat." "Your daughter?" Soren's voice was steady despite his pallor. "Your puppet, you mean. The vessel for your curse." Varen's smile didn't waver. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The ring. My grandmother's ring." Soren took a step forward, and every guard tensed. "You bound a death curse to it. Every moment Vespera wears it near me, it feeds, drains my life force. Another few weeks, and I'd be dead, leaving you free to rule through your daughter." Fascinating theory. Varen clasped his hands behind his back. "Unprovable, of course. I can prove it." Every eye turned to Kerensa. She stepped forward, her heart hammering so loud she was certain they could all hear it. But her voice came out steady. "I'm a bond reader. I can see the threads connecting every person in this room." She met Varen's cold gaze, including the ones you'd rather keep hidden. For the first time, something flickered in Varen's expression. Uncertainty. "She's lying," Vespera said quickly. "Bond readers are myths." "Am I?" Kerensa turned to the 5 lords. "Lord Hadron, shall I tell everyone about the gambling debts Varen holds over you? The ones that would ruin your house if revealed?" Hadron went pale. "Lord Corwin, should we discuss the letters? The ones proving your affair with a foreign ambassador's wife? Varen's been using them for 3 years. Corwin's hand moved to his sword, trembling. "Lady Seren, Lord Matthias, Lord Brennick." Kerensa named them one by one. "You're not allies, you're victims, bound to Varen through blackmail and fear. He doesn't share power, he hoards it, and when he's done using you, he'll discard you like he's discarding Soren." The lords exchanged glances. The threads between them and Varen flickered, weakening. "Kill her," Varen snapped. The guards moved forward, and Kerensa reached for the bond. She'd never tried this before, never pushed her gift beyond seeing. But with Soren's hand finding hers, with the golden thread blazing between them, she felt power surge through her veins. She didn't just see the threads, she showed them. Light erupted from her hands, golden and brilliant, illuminating every connection in the room. The conspirators gasped as their own threads became visible. Red chains of blackmail leading back to Varen, the sickly green curse coiling around Soren's heart, and Vespera, wrapped in dark magic, a puppet with strings leading directly to her father. "Do you see?" Kerensa's voice rang with power she didn't know she possessed. "Do you see what he's done to all of you?" Lord Hadron moved first. His sword came up, pointing not at Kerensa, but at Varen. "I'm done," he said hoarsely. "I'm done being your puppet." One by one, the other lords followed. Even Varen's guards hesitated, looking at the threads binding them, realizing for the first time that they'd been pawns in a game much larger than they'd known. Varen's composure finally cracked. "Vespera," he snarled. "Now!" Vespera raised her hand, the ring blazing with dark light. The curse around Soren's heart constricted violently. He cried out, falling to his knees. "No!" Kerensa lunged forward, but Vespera thrust out her palm, and dark magic slammed into Kerensa, throwing her backward. She hit the floor hard, the breath driven from her lungs. "You think you can stop this?" Vespera's voice was cold, nothing like the serene bride from the cathedral. "The curse is tied to his bloodline, to the ring. The only way to break it is to destroy the ring or kill him, and I'm not giving up my prize. Carenza pushed herself up, vision swimming. Soren was on his knees, the curse visible now even to normal eyes. Black tendrils wrapped around his chest, squeezing. The mate bond pulsed desperately. He was dying. Right in front of her. He was dying. She thought of her grandmother, of the stories about bond readers who could do more than see, who could cut. She'd never tried it, never dared, but she was out of options. Carenza reached for the curse, not with her hands, with her gift, with the golden bond connecting her to Soren. She pushed everything she had into that connection, feeling it flare bright, and she cut. The dark thread around Soren's heart severed. Vespera screamed as the magic backlashed. The ring on her finger cracked, then shattered, fragments scattering across the throne room floor. The curse dissolved like smoke in sunlight. Soren gasped, color flooding back into his face. He looked at his hands, then at Carenza, then back at his hands. "It's gone," he breathed. "I can feel my wolf again." Varen bolted for the door. He didn't make it 3 steps before Riven appeared, bloodied but alive, blocking the exit with a dozen loyal guards. "Going somewhere, Lord Varen?" Riven's smile was all teeth. Varen looked at the guards, at his former allies, now pointing swords at him, at his daughter, collapsed on the throne, unconscious from the magical backlash. "This isn't over," he spat. "Yes," Soren said, rising to his feet. "It is." The trial lasted 3 days. Varen's crimes were laid bare before the full council. Conspiracy, attempted regicide, use of forbidden blood magic. The evidence was overwhelming. Carenza's testimony, the shattered ring, and the confessions of lords who'd been freed from Varen's blackmail. Vespera was spared execution. She'd been groomed from childhood, shaped into a weapon by a father who saw her only as a tool. Instead, she was stripped of her titles and sent to a remote temple, where she might find peace, or at least distance from the damage she'd caused. Varen hanged at dawn on the 4th day. Carenza didn't watch. She'd seen enough of him through her gift to last several lifetimes. Instead, she stood at her window, watching the sun rise over the mountains, and tried to process everything that had changed. A knock at her door. She knew who it was before she opened it. The golden thread hummed warmly, recognizing him. Soren looked different without the curse. Younger somehow. The shadows under his eyes had faded, and he moved with an easy grace that made her breath catch. "It's done," he said quietly. "Varen's gone. The conspiracy's dismantled. The kingdom's secure." "Good." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Which means our arrangement is complete." Carenza's pulse jumped. The blood oath. Fulfilled. "You found the anchor. Expose the conspiracy. Save my life." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small pouch. "Your payment. Enough gold to buy land anywhere you want. Start over. Be free." She took the pouch with numb fingers. It was heavy. A lifetime of security, right in her palm. "And the bond?" she asked softly. Soren's expression tightened. "The bond doesn't trap you. I meant what I said, Carenza. You're free to leave. I won't follow. I won't send men after you. I won't—" His voice broke slightly. "I'll let you go, if that's what you want." She looked at the pouch in her hands, then at the man standing before her, offering her freedom when every line of his body screamed that he wanted her to stay. "What if I don't want to leave?" Hope flared in his eyes, quickly suppressed. "Then I'd ask you to stay. Not as my physician, not as part of any arrangement." He took a breath. "As my queen, my mate, my partner in everything." "Soren, I know it is fast. I know we've only known each other for days. But I've dreamed of you for 7 years, Carenza. I've loved you since before I knew your name." He stepped closer, his hand lifting to cup her cheek. "And every moment since you crashed my wedding, I've loved you more." Tears blurred her vision. I'm a healer from a village that doesn't appear on maps. I don't know how to be a queen. You stood before my entire council and challenged the most powerful lord in the kingdom. You broke a curse that was killing me with nothing but your gift and your courage. You've been queenlier in 1 week than most nobles manage in a lifetime. People will talk. They'll say you chose a commoner over. Let them talk. His thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped. I don't care about bloodlines or politics or what the court thinks proper. I care about you. Only you. Carenza thought about her life before this. The hiding. The loneliness. The constant fear of discovery. She'd dreamed of escape, of starting over somewhere safe. But safety, she realized, wasn't a place. It was a person. Yes, she whispered. Soren went very still. Yes? Yes. I'll stay. Yes. I'll be your queen. Yes to all of it. She laughed through her tears. Ask me properly, though. I've heard kings are supposed to kneel. Something blazed in his expression. He dropped to one knee right there, taking her hand. Carenza of Thornwick, bond reader, curse breaker, the woman who crashed my wedding and changed my entire life. His voice was rough with emotion. Will you marry me? I already said yes. Say it again. I want to hear it. Yes. She pulled him to his feet. Yes, yes, yes. He kissed her before she could say it a fourth time. The bonding ceremony was held under the full moon. Carenza wore silver and deep blue, colors that shimmered like starlight. Her grandmother's comb held back her hair, the only remnant of her old life she'd chosen to keep. Soren waited at the altar in ceremonial black, his eyes never leaving her as she walked toward him. The golden thread between them blazed bright enough that she suspected even those without her gift could feel it. Riven stood at Soren's side, his scarred face softened by something that might have been happiness. The lords and ladies of the court filled the hall, their threads a tapestry of curiosity, approval, and tentative hope. Even the servants watched from doorways and balconies, witnesses to a love story that would be told for generations. When the priest asked for their vows, Soren spoke first. I spent 7 years dreaming of a woman I'd never met, searching for someone I wasn't sure existed. I'd almost given up hope. His voice carried through the silent hall. And then you burst into my wedding, told me to stop, and proceeded to save my life with a gift you'd spent your whole existence hiding. He took her hands. I choose you, Carenza. Not because of fate or bonds or destiny, because you're the bravest person I've ever known. Because you challenge me, infuriate me, and make me want to be better. Because every morning I wake up wanting to see your face, and every night I fall asleep grateful you're there. Carenza blinked back tears. I came to the capital because of dreams I couldn't explain. I crashed your wedding because I couldn't stand to watch you die. I stayed because somewhere along the way, the king who sat in shadows became the man I couldn't imagine living without. She squeezed his hands. I choose you, Soren. Not because we're mates, but because you offered me freedom and made me want to stay. Because you see me, all of me, the gift and the fear and everything in between, and you've never once flinched. The priest spoke the binding words. Magic flared, sealing promises that went bone deep. When Soren kissed her, the hall erupted in cheers. The celebration lasted until dawn. Music and dancing and toasts that grew progressively more ridiculous as the wine flowed. Riven gave a speech that was surprisingly tender beneath its gruff exterior. Lords who'd once looked at Carenza with suspicion now bowed with genuine respect. Finally, they slipped away. Their chambers were warm, lit by candlelight and the glow of the fading moon. Soren closed the door and leaned against it, watching her with an expression that made her pulse race. Hello, wife, he murmured. Hello, husband. He crossed to her in 3 strides, pulling her close. They kissed slowly, thoroughly, with none of the desperation of before. They had time now, all the time in the world. Later, much later, they lay tangled together in the moonlight. Carenza traced idle patterns on his chest, marveling at the absence of the curse. His heartbeat was strong and steady beneath her palm. "Tell me something," Soren said, echoing their first real conversation. "Something I don't know." Carenza thought for a moment. "I almost didn't go into the cathedral. I stood outside for an hour convincing myself I was crazy, that the dreams meant nothing, that a healer from nowhere had no business interfering with a royal wedding." "What changed your mind?" The bells started ringing. The ceremony was beginning. She lifted her head to meet his eyes. "And I realized that if I walked away, I'd spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to stay." Soren's hand found hers, threading their fingers together. "I'm glad you stayed." "So am I." He kissed her forehead. "Your turn. Ask me something." "When did you know? That you loved me, I mean. Actually, loved me, not just the bond." He was quiet for a moment. "In the council chamber, when you stood up to Varen, this village healer who should have been terrified, facing down the most dangerous man in my court, and you didn't even blink." His voice softened. "That's when I knew I was ruined for anyone else." Carenza smiled against his chest. "Ruined? Completely and utterly ruined." He pulled her closer. "And I wouldn't have it any other way." They fell asleep as the sun rose, wrapped in each other and the bond that had brought them together. Outside, the kingdom Carenza had stumbled into was waking up, unaware that their new queen had once been a healer who delivered babies and set broken bones and mixed remedies for stubborn coughs. She'd crashed a wedding expecting to save a stranger. Instead, she'd found a home. The dreams had stopped the moment the curse broke, replaced by something better. Real mornings waking up beside a man who looked at her like she'd hung the stars. Real purpose, using her gift to help rather than hide. Real love, chosen freely, growing stronger every day. She'd poured everything she had into saving him, and he'd given her the world. Where are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts. And if you'd like to support me, please subscribe. It's free, and it helps more people hear these stories.